Welcome to the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where we champion education, celebrate community, and unite the very best of humanity. Fueled by world-class military precision and cultural excellence, Washington Tattoo produces unforgettable immersive experiences, creating an atmosphere for people, organizations, and businesses to connect, network, and build impactful relationships. We invite you to listen to this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where the world's musical traditions come to life. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast. Over across the pond, I've got my good friend Stu Warmington. How are you today, Stu?
Hi, all good, all good. Got some sun here today for a change, which is amazing. Because you know what it's like, it's always raining here, so yeah, it's nice to have a bit of sun on the face. And that's actual natural light. That's not, electric light.
I love it. Yeah, I've got my lamp going on here because I think you've sent some of your British weather over to Washington today. No, this has been great. So we've been having a lot of awesome conversations with some great guests, really exploring the world's, history, music, military history, military music. And, we've had some great guests on, but we wanted to do a different type of episode today where we can bring in folks from the team, talk about their experience. But today is really going to be focused on this incredible concert series that happens with the Royal Marines, and now His Majesty's Royal Marines, at the Mountbatten Festival of Music in London. So Stu has been a part of it. Stu's been, someone who's worked with it, worked on it, and now is creating the drums for the musicians that are playing there. And so there's so much to unpack today. And so Stu, thanks so much for hopping on today. And we're going to unpack your story, my story and experience being there, but really what is the Mountbatten Festival of Music and what does it mean? What does it stand for?
No, thanks for having me. It's great. I've spent, I've done 16 of them, and now I'm on the other side where I'm now viewing it from it's a whole different perspective, from learning the music to then just sitting back and relaxing and watching what goes in front, not knowing what's coming next, which is always a good thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it.
I love it. Well, I hope everyone's strapped in and they've got their tea or their coffee. Stu, what kind of tea are you drinking today?
Well, I'm on coffee. So recently I went to Traverse City. We went to see one of our dealers, and we got taken out to a bar, and they were selling whiskey coffee. So I brought a few sachets back, and that's in the machine at the moment. And it's in me Dr. Who mug. So what about yourself?
Perfect. I've got my Dunkin' Donuts coffee in I have to say a quick shout out to Stuart McLaurin from the White House Historical Association. This is the White House history mug here. It's incredible. And I've got some Dunkin' Donuts coffee. So let's dive in. All right. So let's start the Mountbatten Festival of Music. What is it? Where is it? Why does it exist?
So it's always been a festival, or classed as a festival, and it started in February 1973, believe it or not. And it was the bands of the Royal Marine School of Music, the Naval Home Command, Commander-in-Chief, and HMS Ganges, and they all got together for the Royal Academy of Music 150th anniversary appeal. So that's what they all got together for. And then they carried on after that, and they started earning or raising money for the Malcolm Sargent's Children's Cancer Fund. And it still wasn't called the Mountbatten then. And Malcolm Sargent was the advisory of music to the Royal Marines at that time. And then in 1979, Admiral of the Fleet Lord Louis Mountbatten was killed by the IRA. So he was the King's great uncle. So then in 1980, as a form of respect, they changed it to the Mountbatten Festival of Music. So from 1980 onwards, it's always been known as the Mountbatten Festival of Music.
Wow, that's incredible. And I mean, has it always been centered around the Royal Marines? Has it been any other groups really involved? Who takes the lead with this? Yeah,
so it's predominantly a Royal Marines event. It always has and always will be. Every now and again, they bring guests in. I remember long before I joined up, the CDs and the cassette tapes that used to come out. And I can remember seeing one where they had the Argyle and Southern Highlanders on. They came in and performed. It is the Royal Marines concert, but they'll bring guests in and do little stints. So I remember that cassette. Also, the United States Marine Corps came across in the 80s. So them two groups came across in the 80s. And then it's been nothing for ages until I think 2003. I think they had the Dutch Marines over, and that's because we had fire strikes, we had people off in the Gulf, so to bolster the numbers in the performance, we had the Dutch Marines. And then more recently, we had the Top Secret Drum Corps. They've come across, and obviously the Dutch Marines have come across again. So it's nice to see, it's not just the Royal Marines concert. It's nice to bring other people in and see their traditions, because especially this year when we watched the Dutch Marines, they were performing with the choreo drums. The Royal Marines were doing their stick work. They were doing their stick work, and you could see the two different traditions and styles and cultures behind it. And I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, it's nice to bring different groups in, but there's not been too many over the years. But I think moving forward, that will happen.
Well, I think that YouTube video that really exploded with the Royal Marines and the Top Secret Drum Corps, I mean, it went completely viral. I think people are doing reviews of the review of the review.
I know, I was I was meant to be on there. I was meant to be on bass drum for that, and I had to go to the hospital for an operation, so I missed it. So I was gutted about that anyway. But then when I watched it, man, even just watching it on YouTube, like all the hairs came up. It was because it's not something that the Marines have ever done before. It was completely, over the years, the Royal Marines Corps drums have been sort of not criticised, but constantly pushing the boundary. People think we're moving away from our tradition, and it's not. It's about that we can do this, but we can also do this as well. So to do something like that really, set the bar high for what we can do in the future as well. But the reaction was incredible, especially at the end where they all came together and played each other's music. I mean, it was phenomenal. Even me watching it it amazed me. It actually did.
Well, I think it's incredible because you think about the history of the Royal Marines and you think about the tradition and the tradition of the drumming, the tradition of the music. There's definitely a box that most military bands have to be in. But then when you start to step outside of that box, people are going to have their opinions. People are going to say it wasn't the way it was when I was in, and totally understand that. But the beauty of that is that the new innovation going forward resonates with a lot of the younger generation, and the history and the tradition won't live unless the new generation embraces it and finds it relevant. So there's this kind of dance between the lines of the history and tradition and then innovation, and the people who are able to do that really well, those are the folks that succeed. And I think the Royal Marines have done an incredible job at, always keeping one foot in tradition and history, but always leaning forward with that other foot into innovation in a proper and respectable way.
Yeah, I think they've realised, our concerts, well, before I joined up, were always the same type of music. There's always like the big band and the traditional marches and the overtures. It was all very, stale's not the right word, but it was regimented. It was always the same. It was always opening fanfare. It was always the same. And obviously the audience changed the older they get, and you need that backfill of people coming in. So the band services realised that they need that, and to be able to do that, they need to change the music. And, so rather than just playing Colonel Bogey, which everybody knows and is a classic, you're now seeing the Royal Marines performing stuff like Pink Floyd or the Prodigy and stuff like this. So it's a massive change. But it is reflecting on the younger generation, and they're now wondering. And these review videos you spoke about, this is the best thing that can never happen, because not many people will see the Royal Marines at the Albert Hall, but when somebody's reviewing them, these reaction videos are great.
Well, I think it's really interesting when you start to talk about this, because the reaction videos that you're seeing, there's, History Yeet, and there's other folks that are out there putting these great videos out there to explore what are folks doing. And I think the biggest one was from Natasha and Debbie show. And the Natasha and Debbie show had this incredible, review of the Royal Marines and the Top Secret Drum Corps going back and forth. And that show has, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers and subscribers. So if that review had not happened of that type of event, it would never have reached, hundreds of thousands or even millions of viewers. And so I think that's a really important piece of the conversation, is the way to keep this tradition alive and vibrant is to have that innovation, a little bit of technology. And I think, going into even that point, the type of music that is chosen, we'll talk about that a little bit later, because I think there's a special relationship with a couple composers. But that YouTube component and that social media component, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, and I follow Natasha and Debbie, and I love it, and they love everything about the UK. It's suddenly turned into the UK show, but they do a lot of reaction stuff, and obviously they're big fans of Alan Murray as well, and it's great, and they're not the only ones. There's loads of people doing these reactions, and it's just widespread. But that top secret video, you're right, it just went completely viral, and that was great for them. It was great for us, and it's great for the people who are making this new content as well, because they're now getting viewers who they wouldn't normally have either, because it's a top secret thing or it's a marine thing. So it's all this cross contamination that's just exploding, and it's all good news for everybody. To be honest.
Well, and I think the most highly recognized and probably most important reviewer was Her Majesty the Queen. When she loved it so much, she actually brought it to her Platinum Jubilee celebration, right?
Yeah, she did. And she was normally quite reserved in her reactions for stuff, obviously clapping and what have you, but she absolutely adored the Royal Marines Corps of Drums. And then when they did this collaboration, she basically just said, "I want that again." And she loved it. And you watch the footage from the performance, and you can see her reaction afterwards. She actually thoroughly enjoyed it. So and that collaboration now has gone on. They've just been to Canada for the Nova Scotia tattoo, and it's happening, more and more often. So it's a good thing to see.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally encourage anyone who's listening to this or viewing this right now, go look up the Platinum Jubilee and just watch Her Majesty's face. And you just talk about the humanity behind the royals. And if you're into the history of the royals and the story of the royals, there is so much there. But I think when you talk about the pride and the music and honestly the pageantry, you're not going to get a better performance than the Royal Marines and the Top Secret Drum Corps on there. And I think being alumni, for the both of us being alumni of those organizations, maybe we're a little bit biased, but you know what? I think that's totally fine.
No, I agree.
Well, awesome. And I mean, let's go into this a little bit. We talked about technology. We talked about the different types of music that's there. And so there are, different types of music. There's the real traditional British military marches that are there, which are classics and everyone loves it. But I know when I went to my first Mountbatten Festival a handful of years ago, there's an audio-visual component where there's screens there. It's in this incredible location, the Royal Albert Hall in the middle of London. Let's just talk about the venue for a second.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the venue is amazing. For a Mountbatten Festival performance, it's 5,000 tickets a night, or just over 5,000 seat capacity. And the Marines are the only military band who can pack it out for 3 performances in a row every year. And, there's no better venue in London. It's right prime in the centre of Kensington. It's easy to get to. The dynamics and what you get from there. You've been yourself. You see the sort of mushroom domes at the top for the sound projection. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. And it's where all the big bands go. So why shouldn't a military band go there? They're no different from Iron Maiden or The Who or Justin Bieber or, whoever it is. They can perform at these big places as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great venue. And yeah, the technology, having that technology at the Albert Hall definitely helps. We got the visual side of it. So, and you're right, it has progressed over the years. When we first started when I first started the concerts, it was literally just a concert. There was no visualization whatsoever at all. And then over the years, they've used it in the finale pieces to begin with, and that was just to enhance the stories, because every concert has a big finale piece, and it's telling a story. Initially it was the Battle of Trafalgar, which was there was a narrator who used to do the speech over the top of it, but there was no visual. And then over the years, they've moved away from the narration and put it in the video visualization, and they've got all these clips from First World War, the Second World War, or what at Korea, or whatever it is they're talking about, which then helps. Well, it's like a film, isn't it? You hear the music. If you watch a film, it's completely different without the music behind it. So
Absolutely.
Listen to the music is different to when you've got some visualization to go with it. So by combining them two, you're basically watching a live performance of a film is what it is. But they're telling a story, and it's massively helped over the years. And then it's just got bigger and bigger with the inclusion of pyrotechnics, lasers, which we saw a couple of years ago for the Prodigy. I mean, that was just something else. You could saw that on a stage at a music festival. It was that big. It was a big show. So yeah, it helps the audience definitely, and maybe those with hearing difficulties as well. There's visualization there, so it's not going to go away. I think if anything, it's going to enhance all future performances and maybe move on from there. I mean, you just got to look at the ABBA show now in London. That's all holograms and what have you. So who's to say it can't move on to something like that? What's stopping us having a performance in hologram in a different country when these guys are actually in the UK? So you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, that's incredible because I remember being there for the first one, and it was a huge tip of the cap in honoring, I think it was D-Day veterans, and the pictures, the video that were there, and how it was matched up to the music. It made it an emotional experience. It was so emotional. You can see there were veterans there from World War II. I even get chills thinking about it right now, where you're sitting there watching these grandfathers and grandmothers who are part of the nurse corps or part of the infantry or part of the tank brigades. And you start seeing these folks that, served, and they were part of these visual presentations that are happening, actual videos from World War II. And then the music that's there as this underlying kind of emotional train ride. And you see folks standing, taking their honors, tipping their cap, and you see grandchildren watching their grandparents having this moment of honor. And it's such a special moment for humanity and service. And it's honestly, and it's an experience that I think everyone should absolutely go to see.
Yeah, I mean, if people listen to this, want to watch something, one I saw, I think it was about 4 years ago, and it was without doubt the most moving and emotional thing I've seen there. And it was a piece called The Sound of Silence, which normally is just, it's a great piece of music, but then with the accompanying video, and it was all about mental health and stuff like this. And it was incredible. And, even now, every time I watch it, it's quite a moving piece. So if anybody wants to watch it, look out for we can maybe get Jesse to put a link in the comments or somewhere, and we'll put a link to it. But it is an incredible piece of music. But the video that goes with it makes it even more moving. But it's so good.
Well, and I think it's interesting too. I mean, from a production standpoint and the actual show itself, the programming perspective, it's not all super serious. And that's what I love. There is definitely a little bit of British humor that's always kind of put in there. And it's kind of this roller coaster of, is it an hour long? Is it an hour and a half, 2 hours? How long is the program typically?
I think it's somewhere between an hour and a half and an hour and 3/4, taking away out the interval. I mean, it's meant to be a 20-minute interval. It's always progresses longer. And obviously, when you're planning something like this, we can talk about the planning in a minute, but it's hard to realize how long each sort of round of applause is going to go on to. So you set so much aside for each piece having the applause, but you don't know how it's going to react. It could go on a lot longer. So then obviously your times are just moving right up, all the time. So you just never know.
Well, and I think it's interesting too. One of the years I went, The Greatest Showman had just come out, which has just an incredible soundtrack. Hugh Jackman singing, all these different folks that are just so powerful. And I remember The Greatest Showman piece of music being played. And I remember there were almost like carnival style actors who came in with tall stilts and legs, people who were doing flame throwing, and it was all part, and they came through the audience. And it was such a magical moment because it still felt proper. It still felt very classic, but it brought a new age and a new style of sound, I think, to the Royal Marines band service.
Yeah, I think that they're quite conscious of not going too commercial, or, they know the track they want to take, and if they can add to it, then they will do. And obviously the Greatest Showman was a prime example of that. I remember a few years ago we did River Dance, so they brought some Irish dancers on. You've seen River Dance, there's a lot for the corps of drums to do. So there's a lot of concentration. What you don't need is a load of dancers dancing away, and it's hard, But no, it was all good fun. But not just Irish dancers. We've had different pieces from like Miss Saigon or Les Mis, where we've had people dressed up like we brought professional dancers in, or actors who sort of played that part out. And I can remember, I think this must have been around about 2005. We had these dancers in, or these actors. And they wrote an article for the Blue Band, the Royal Marines Journal, afterwards. And he was talking about the corps of drums. And he basically said, these guys were laughing and joking in the stalls one minute, and then in the next they were on the stage full of grace like Fred Astaire.
I love it.
And that's what it's about. It's, there's a time to perform, a time to carry on. And, the band servers know what's going to be right and what's not. They'll never chance anything. They always know it's going to work. So, and that's, they wouldn't put it on. So the Greatest Showman, that was great. We've had dancers, and we've had all sorts.
Yeah, so I mean, you're bringing outside organizations in to work with, professional military musicians. So what do rehearsals look like with that?
So the rehearsal schedule well, let's go from the start of day one right the way through. So it takes about 12 months to put the show on. So straight after the previous year, they'll have a couple of weeks and then they'll get a production meeting, how it went, what can be changed for next year, any good points, any bad points, and then they'll start looking at the program. So already within the previous year, people are getting ideas together ready for this meeting. So it's actually longer than a year. They'll have a production meeting, right? This is the ideas. What do we think about it? And then they'll decide on a plan, and then they'll send it out. So all the music is either composed entirely by people in the band service or arranged, other than the few traditional standard pieces that we don't change, like regimental marches. So then the musical or the ideas will get sent out to the arrangers saying, look, we want you to arrange this, or can you compose a piece for this, a bugle march or an overture or whatever. And then they've got basically so many months, about 7 months to get that done. And then they'll have a quick playthrough, just make sure everything works. And then if it works okay, then they really start getting down onto the composing and putting the show together. Because, it could be lasers, it could be pyrotechnics, or, getting kit in, getting kit out on the stage, whatever it is. Something that might need to be built a few years ago. So the xylophones tend to be the comedians now. They do and there was it was basically like a xylophone, but with plumbing pipes. So that had to be made and tested and make sure that worked. So that took time as well. So it's stuff like that. But the actual rehearsal schedule, so it's a week long. So the band will get together on the Sunday, they'll play through all the music, and then it's a chance then for the rest of the week for the individual conductors to come in, play through it, show the band how they want it played, the dynamics, articulation, stuff like that. The core drums are working separate at this point. They've got their stage mapped out on a floor and they're practicing their movements as much as they can do. And then on Wednesday, it goes up to London. Well, it used to be Wednesday. I think now it's a Thursday. Goes up and they do a full day's rehearsal, and then they'll do some into the evening. And then the show's on the Friday. So they might come in and do the recording. So sometimes they do the recording from the Albert Hall. So they'll do that in the morning. And then the first show is Friday evening. And now it's one on the Saturday afternoon and one on the Saturday evening. Normally there's a attendance by some royal at one of the shows. So this year, the King turned up, which was on the Friday, which is a surprise. Normally it's the Saturday night. But he's now the Commandant General of the Royal Marines. So I don't know whether it's a regular thing he's going to be there, but he was definitely there this year, which is great.
Incredible. And so you brought up, the conductors and all of that. And who selects the music for this event? So
you have a core team with some additional people. So the principal director of music, obviously, he's going to be there. It's his show. He listens to people's ideas and say yes or no. And then he'll have the core arranger, which is generally the core bandmaster. So he'll then dish out who he wants to arrange the pieces. Generally, he writes a lot himself. You'll notice recently Ivan Hutchinson, who was the recent core bandmaster, he did a lot of work with the Two Steps from Hell guys. So Invincible, which was the very first piece we did, and is being done for so many years now, and we just improve on that and change pieces from Two Steps from Hell. So we've done a lot of stuff from them, and then it'll just go out, and it can be anything from, like I said, Pink Floyd to big band, or it just, we don't have a set repertoire. Right. Like I said, the Prodigy is pretty much the Forest Extreme thing we've done so far within composing wise. So core bandmaster, and then you'll have the core drum major or core bugle major for the core drum side of it, and then just a few of the other bandmasters and directors of music who are going to be involved, and then the production side of it, so the sound, lighting, and then the actual people from the hall. So it starts off small, and then this group just gets bigger and bigger the further down the road it gets, and the more we start to interact with people, because it's a big thing, and it's not just a case of putting a show on. It's the feeding. Obviously, you've got 3 or 4 bands there at a time. That's a lot of people that need feeding, and they can't all be fed at the same time because of space and all the rest. So there's a lot of logistic wise and getting the coaches in. You can't get all the coaches in, so they've got to get reversed down one at a time, and Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a lot goes into it that people don't realise. People just turn up and watch the show and go home, and that was great. But there's a lot goes into it.
Welcome to event production, right? Well, so this is interesting, right? So let me ask a funny one here. Is there a favorite meal that's served during the Mountbatten festivals? Let's go two different directions. Favorite meal for the performers and maybe favorite meal for the attendees.
Well, so it's changed over the years. So we used to get money and just go out and buy whatever we wanted ourselves, and now they've got inside catering. So generally, a lasagna always goes down well. But yeah, I think people are just happy to have a hot food. You know, they've had long rehearsals. You know, some people are there from 6 o'clock in the morning, and you know, by the time they get to lunchtime or the evening meal, they start flagging. So it's having that warm meal just keeps them, you know, rejuvenated and keeps them going. So having that inside catering now made a huge difference. They had a big change and a big development where they overhauled the underneath. They used to get all the coaches in, and now you can't get all the coaches in because they've extended it to involve this inside catering. And that's a big thing, you know. And it's not just for us; it's for the police as well, because obviously we have a police presence that gets searched every day before every performance, police dogs, and then you've got the people doing the security, which is generally the Royal Marines, commandos. So there's a lot of components come into this. So having that on-site catering is a huge thing, rather than everybody then going out the Albert down to Kensington. You can't get anywhere because it's full, because everybody's got the same ideas, as well as the London tourists as well. So life's a lot easier now.
Great. Well, I mean, if I'm going to go to the Mountbatten Festival as a viewer, what should I eat? What should I drink?
So, I mean, Kensington is just up the road. You've got some really nice places to eat, some really posh places. You've got your fast foods, or you've got some nice restaurants. It's weird because London in a weekend closes down after a certain time. So once the event finishes, you won't get anything to eat because it just closes down. It's weird for a capital. So you're best off going out for something nice and light before the show, just something light. And then once you're in there, you can nibble to your heart's content. You can get food into the boxes or whatever you want. So, but yeah, nothing too heavy.
All right, so good. This brings me to two different points. So one is, it's funny because I went to search for food after the show, and it was very difficult. And I ended up going to a Burger King in Kensington, and I ran into Ludovic Froshaw from the Avanche Tattoo at about 3 a.m, because apparently we had the same idea. So you never know who you run into. But when it comes back to the music real quick, I think the stick work for the Royal Marines Corps of Drums is always iconic. And I think you have some experience with some of the arranging for that. Is that true?
Yeah, so I've written some of the statics there before, and you know, we have a drum static competition. Well, I don't anymore, but there's a drum static competition in the Royal Marines, and I always
and real quick. So a static is what exactly?
Yeah, so it's called a static because it was a drum display that never moved. So that's the reason it was called a static, because they never went anywhere. They were just stood still playing. But it's basically just a drum display. And a lot of people will write them and they'll happily get them played at any event, where I used to put mine specially for an event. So you could work out the choreography, the steps and everything. So the good thing about the Mountbatten concert is there's a lot of, you've seen yourself, they're not just on stage, it's how they get into the stage. And there's so many doors around the whole building. You know, over the years, it used to be that they come down the steps into the middle, do the drum static, and then go off. Now the guys are moving all the time, and you know, even since I've left in the last couple of years, it's got so much more complicated than just a few doors here and there. And they're moving on the stage, they're moving off the stage, they're down into the audience, they're up in the audience, and back down on the stage again. So there's a lot going on. Sorry, what was your question, Mark?
No, it's so funny. You know, you and I are turning into the old guys we talked about earlier. Now we're going, well, when I was in. No, so you've written some of these statics before. Can you talk a little bit about the writing process of the static?
Yeah, so a drum static, So going back to what I said, I physically write it for an event. So we know the Mountbatten, we limited stage space as opposed to the Edinburgh Tattoo, where you've got a massive area, you can have big shapes. So, but the good thing about the Mountbatten, it's all compressed, so it's a very tight knit group. So the effects, everybody sees them straight away. You're not having to follow it all around. It's quite close. So it's quite an enjoyable thing to write, you know. And you know, we're left open to do whatever we want, especially in the later years where we could do backsticking, we could put head movements in, we could change the timbre of the drums by, you know, for the one I did with Graham Stevenson. we used a drum corps drum, which had been the first time that had happened. And that gives a completely different sound to a Scottish pipe band drum as well. So we used that, wood blocks, and it's just nice knowing that you're allowed. Somebody's given you the trust to write something for this event that's going to be seen by millions of people online now, and obviously members of the royal family. So it's just trying to find what you want, and the writing process. The writing process, I did a lot of statics with Steve-O, and the writing process never changed. And it was always a pizza, a few beers, some sticks in a pad. And it was tried and tested. It never failed. And we come up with some great statics, and that's what we did. We had a few beers, we had a pizza, and that's what happened. And then we just expand on it and send it out to the guys, and it always worked a treat.
It was always fun. Yeah. I mean, I think that is a tried and true testament to how the process of writing music works so well, is just be in a good headspace, have something that keeps your brain nice and light and agile enough to think of something creative, be in the right space. And I remember working with Eric Juilliard for about almost like 6 years or so, and trying to put the Top Secret shows together in the same way. Is just sit around, drum pad and sticks, computer, write 6 or 8 bars, write 32 bars, throw 10 bars away, keep 2 bars, just keep working on it. But yeah, the visual element, the performing element of the rudiments and the drumming, and then of course the movements and the drill that you're going to put together with that is always hyper important if you understand the space that you're going to perform in. Because if you don't understand the space, you could completely write the greatest thing ever known to man, but it's not appropriate for the space. And then it's basically a train wreck.
No, and so on a promotion course for the Corps of Drums, the B1 course, one of their what's their biggest project is the Mountbatten Festival Music, and they've got to get the Corps of Drums there, and it's like a virtual project. So they get given a scenario. You've got this many people. These are the doors you can use. This is the music. Right, plan it out, and this is to get them ready for when they do have to do that in real. And it's such a great thing to do, but they throw like curveballs in. So you'll plan this whole thing, and they'll say, right, well, door G and O you can't use now because the cameras are going to be there, so you need to come up. And it's trying to get you on the spot thinking about what to change, or there's been a delay with one of the buses. Not all the core drums are here. You've got to go on with this many now, so you've got to quickly change your plans. And it's great, and it's all about getting people used to planning on different types of stages with different people. We've been on stages before, me and you, Mark, where something's happened and it's changed at the very last minute, and you've just got to react to it. And it's having that ability to react and just make it happen.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And especially for doing it in front of the royal family, whatever mistakes are made, you have to have professionals good enough that it doesn't even look like a mistake, because the mistake was fixed so quickly no one catches it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's different for the people who are performing. They'll spot a mistake straight away.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, you and I are the ones on there online watching for every little mistake. And it actually becomes very stressful because you don't actually enjoy the music, which is something that's a challenge. But let's go real quick with 2 final questions. One is the Mountbatten Festival of Music and the Royal Marines specifically have an incredible relationship or agreement or something with the group 2 Steps from Hell. And I think that's a group that has really taken the world by storm. Their soundtracks, their digital media, the way that they've marketed themselves, the music they produce is unlike anything else in the world. And it's so iconic. It's epic music. It's gripping. And honestly, people have used it for soundtracks for so many other things. So what does that relationship kind of look like?
So Ivan Hutchinson did Invincible, and I think we used it for the 2010 Basel tattoo. I can't remember if that was the first year or whether it was something else beforehand, but that was definitely the first time I played it. And it was very new then. And it was, so I don't know how it came about, but he'd obviously, if we need to arrange something, we need to get permission off the original composers to be able to do that. And 2 Steps from Hell guys, everybody would have heard their music without even realizing on adverts or whatever. Everybody uses it. So we got permission to do it, and we performed a Basel tattoo, and it went down a storm. So it then became a thing because it was so cool and so different. Everybody wanted it, so we kept playing it at concerts. It just went everywhere to the point where the guys didn't have to think about it. And obviously, it's quite an intricate stick work part. but we played it that often. You could just go on, whether it's 4 people, 5 people, 8. You'd played it that much, you just knew what you had to do. So then the year after, we got something else from Two Steps from Hell, and over the years we've had about, I'm guessing, about 8 pieces, similar in style. It's a piece where you can bring the chorus drums on. It's quite a cinematic piece, some big brass parts, and basically not blow your ears off, but it's when it's a Two Steps from Hell piece, and it was always used in the chorus drum section in the march sequence because it's meaty and beefy and what have you. So we've got a really good relationship with them guys. In fact, the first year we did it, we invited them across. So we must have played it at the Mountbatten first, and then at Basel in the summer. So, but the guys came across, they loved it, and I think when they saw what we were doing and how we did it, and we weren't just making a mess of it, we knew what we were doing. They were happy with it, the arrangement. I think from then on, it was just can we use this? Can we use that? And yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
so
incredible.
It's been, from that one piece, we've had years worth of, music from that, but also all the other pieces we've done as well. Because it does happen. We use something, and then somebody will say, well, another band will say, we want to use that. So they either then come to us or they go to the composers and say, look, can we do our own version? So, that Invincible has been played by many bands now, and it's basically stemmed from us doing it. So that helps them, and it helps us, and it helps the other bands, then great.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I mean, nothing speaks higher to a composer than a fantastic world-renowned group choosing to do their music and then performing it really, really well. So that's probably makes them incredibly proud and happy to have their music being performed on this large of a stage.
Yeah. So
awesome.
The relationship's gone down really well, and the guys are happy with us to the point where we just get on and do it now. They know what's going to happen, and they're more than happy with the Romans band service.
Great. Well, I mean, that's the expectation now. So now the expectation is, all right, what is next? How do we make this better? How do we go? And I think even just speaking of expectation for a final little topic here, the people who attend this event, obviously you have veterans, you have, tourists, you have folks that are supportive of the military service, all of that. But you brought up the Royals. And obviously, I think Two Steps from Hell, knowing that their music is being performed not only by His Majesty's Royal Marines, but being performed in front of His Majesty. And I think there was something kind of special this year, too, because we had a friend of ours that was at the event, the Mountbatten Festival, our good friend Dwayne King, and something I think interestingly unique happened. And can you just describe what happened?
Yeah, so it was June. I think it was during the interval. Obviously, Dwayne had come over. We'd had a meal beforehand.
And Dwayne again is who?
Sorry,
Dwayne's position. Let's talk about Dwayne and like who he is first.
Yeah, so he's the drum major, the United States Marine Corps. So
for the president's own.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure having him over anyway. And that was my first time actually meeting him. And he's a tall guy, isn't he? He's a tall guy.
Huge.
Yeah. So I think it was during the interval. Obviously, all the boxes break out and people go to the toilet and what have you. But during the break, the people in the royal box, they go to a little reception. And it just so happens that when the king came out, the other king, Dwayne, just happened to be in the same area. And, the two kings met. just literally just by being in the right place at the right time. You know what it's like, Mark. It's happened to us many times. It's just these weird coincidences that just happen.
Yeah, incredible. So I encourage as many folks as possible to check out the Mountbatten Festival of Music. I think we have some dates that are already there for next March for 2024.
Yeah, so it's out on the 8th and 9th of March next year. So one show on the Friday, 2 shows on the Saturday. But this year it's actually going on tour. So around the UK, it's going to 7 venues. So it's off to Scarborough, Cardiff, Leicester, Liverpool, Manchester, Nottingham, my hometown, Newcastle. So it's a smaller version, but it's basically the Mountbatten Festival on tour. There'll be 2 bands, a bigger core of drums, and they'll take bits of music from that and perform it to a place where it's easier for people to get to. Maybe people can't travel because of different illnesses or transport problems. So It gives them a chance to experience it in the hometown. And I'm sure it's only a matter of time before it then moves outside the UK.
Incredible.
Find the right promoter, that'd be great.
Awesome. So, folks, if you want to find out more information on the Mountbatten Festival of Music, you can definitely look it up online. You can look up the Royal Marines Band Service, and I'm sure Facebook, social media, all of those, that you can keep up to date with all of the new information that's there and where the tour will be, and then how to get tickets. So, Stu, is there anything else you would like to wrap up with?
No, just if anybody's watching and they're enjoying these podcasts, just to like, share, comment, and whatever, that'll help us. But also, you'll get a little ding if you subscribe every time we put a new video up.
Yeah, absolutely. And please share these stories with everyone that you think that would enjoy hearing about the background and behind the scenes of these iconic music festivals. We're going to have some more conversations about them. There's a few coming up that are really special about these iconic world history locations, and then the people who have been behind the scenes doing it for several years and maybe even an entire career. So yeah, please like, share, comment, give us a review on Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you can find your podcast, as well as our YouTube channel. Again, Stu, thanks so much for the conversation today. Hope everyone has a wonderful one. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Hey everyone, this is Mark Riley again. We want to share a great opportunity with you to get your business name out to our listeners. We are looking for individual episode and yearly sponsors for the Washington Tattoo Podcast. So if you love music, history, and want to support military veterans, please take this step with us and consider being a sponsor. For information on that, please email marketing@thewashingtontattoo.com.